It started with the smell of smoke. A small voice trembled through the phone line, breaking the silence of a man who hadn't felt needed in years. "I'm sorry. Is this Ryan?" Pause. "No. I need help. My mom fell. There's smoke. I don't know what to do. Please. Please come." Another pause. Longer this time. The kind that changes everything. "Where are you?" "I don't know the address. But we live above Jimmy's Tools. There's a red door." The line crackled. Rain drummed against glass somewhere distant. "I'm on my way. Get outside. Right now." "But my mom." "I'll find her. Go." The call ended. The girl ran. And the man who had everything finally heard the one thing money could never buy. Someone calling for help. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you're watching from and what time it is where you're at. If you're new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. 9-year-old Iris Callahan stood frozen in the narrow hallway of apartment 7, third floor, staring at the thin line of grey smoke seeping beneath the storage closet door. Her mother had gone downstairs 10 minutes ago to argue with the landlord about the heating again. Iris had stayed behind, curled on the couch with her sketchbook, drawing the rain-soaked street below. Now the rain didn't matter. The smoke did. Her hands were cold. Her pulse loud in her ears. She remembered what her mother always said. If something feels wrong, don't wait. Call Uncle Marcus. Iris grabbed the phone from the kitchen counter, fingers trembling as she scrolled through contacts. She didn't see the name clearly. Just the first 3 letters. March. She pressed dial. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice. Deep. Steady. Unfamiliar. "This is Calloway." Iris froze. "Hello." She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. I thought this was someone else." A pause. Then, quieter. "Are you okay?" That question cracked something open inside her. "No," she whispered. "There's smoke. I think something's burning inside the walls. My mom's downstairs and I don't know if I should leave or—" "Where are you?" His voice didn't rise. It didn't panic. It just focused. Riverside Apartments. The old ones by the cannery. 3rd floor, apartment 7. "I'm 12 minutes away. Get outside. Right now. Don't take anything. Just go." "But my mom." "I'll find her. Go." Iris didn't argue. She grabbed her purple jacket, shoved her feet into her sneakers, and ran. Calloway Granger stood on the deck of his glass-walled penthouse overlooking the Puget Sound, phone still pressed to his ear even though the line had gone dead. The city glittered below him like a constellation of indifferent stars. Rain streaked the windows. The space around him was immaculate. Modernist furniture. Expensive art. Everything perfectly curated. Everything perfectly empty. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, his coat, and was in the elevator before his assistant could ask where he was going. The black SUV roared to life in the underground garage. He pulled out into the rain-slicked streets, cutting through traffic with precision. Riverside Apartments. He knew the building. His company had once submitted a restoration bid years ago. The project died in permit hell. He'd moved on. Stopped asking why. Now he wished he hadn't. The drive took 11 minutes. The building loomed ahead. Crumbling brick. Rusted fire escapes. A place the city had promised to revitalize for a decade while doing nothing. Tenants were beginning to spill onto the street. Some coughing. Others shouting. No fire trucks yet. Then he saw her. A little girl in a purple jacket, standing alone beneath a broken street lamp, scanning the faces like she was searching for someone who wasn't there. Calloway pulled to the curb and stepped out. He approached slowly, crouched to her level. "Iris." She turned. Eyes wide. Wet with unshed tears. "You came." "I said I would." Her breath hitched. I can't find my mom. What's her name? Nora. Nora Callahan. She has red hair. She was wearing a grey sweater. Calloway stood, scanned the growing crowd. No red hair. No grey sweater. His jaw tightened. He turned back to Iris, voice calm. Stay right here. Don't move. He pushed through the crowd. Past the landlord shouting into his phone. Past a man dragging a suitcase. Past frightened faces and rising smoke. He reached the base of the stairs and took them two at a time. The smoke was thicker on the second floor. Bitter. Chemical. Wrong. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and kept moving. On the second floor landing, he found her. A woman with red hair and soot on her face, coughing into her sleeve, trying to help an elderly man down the stairs. Nora Callahan. She looked up, startled. Confused.
Who?
Your daughter called me. She's outside. She's safe. Relief broke across her face like a dam cracking. Her knees nearly buckled. Oh God. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get him out first. Together, they guided the older man down the stairs, step by careful step. By the time they reached the curb, sirens were finally wailing in the distance. Red and blue lights painted the wet pavement. Iris ran to her mother, arms flung around her waist. Nora held her tight, eyes closed, trembling. When she finally looked up, Calloway was still standing there, hands in his pockets, silent. I don't even know your name, she said. Calloway. Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if. She did everything right, he said simply. You raised her well. Nora's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. And for a moment, standing in the smoke and the rain and the chaos, something passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. Just recognition. Two people who understood what it meant to hold steady when everything was falling apart. Calloway gave a small nod, then turned to leave. Wait. He stopped. Nora stepped forward, Iris still clinging to her side. Can I at least get your number? To say thank you properly. Calloway hesitated. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out a card, and handed it to her. If you need anything. She took it. Their fingers brushed. Just for a second. Then he walked back to his car, climbed in, and drove away. But the weight of her gaze stayed with him long after the building disappeared from his rearview mirror. 3 days later. Nora sat in the cramped motel room the city had provided as temporary housing. Thin walls. Flickering bathroom light. The faint smell of mildew no amount of air freshener could hide. Iris was asleep on the pull-out couch, her sketchbook open beside her, a half-finished drawing of a man with kind eyes. Nora stared at the business card on the nightstand. Calloway Granger. Founder and CEO, Tidewater Development. She'd looked him up. Real estate. High-end restoration projects. Historic preservation with a modern edge. His company had reshaped half the waterfront. Luxury condos. Boutique hotels. The kind of projects that made the City magazine covers. And he'd shown up for a little girl's wrong number call. She didn't know what to do with that. A knock came. Soft. Deliberate. Nora glanced at the clock. 9:15. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door. Calloway stood there. No suit this time. Just jeans, a dark jacket, rain-damp hair. He looked tired. I'm sorry to show up unannounced, he said. I wanted to make sure you were both okay. Nora hesitated, then stepped aside. We're fine. Tired, but fine. He glanced at Iris, still asleep, then back at Nora. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket. The fire inspector released a preliminary report. Faulty wiring in the utility closet. Building code violations going back 15 years. Nora's jaw tightened. That doesn't surprise me. You knew. I suspected. I've been filing complaints for 2 years. No one ever followed up. Calloway was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I looked into the building's ownership. It's part of a holding group called Crescent Properties. They've been sighted before. Multiple buildings. Same pattern. Neglect, defer maintenance, wait for tenants to leave, then sell for redevelopment. Nora's stomach twisted. And nothing happens to them. Not yet. She looked at him sharply. Why are you telling me this? Calloway met her eyes. Because I used to work for them. The room went still. Nora didn't speak. Just waited. I didn't know what they were doing back then, Calloway continued, his voice low. I was young. Ambitious. I thought I was building something good. By the time I realized what they were covering up, I'd already left. Started my own firm. I thought I'd moved on. But you didn't. No. His voice was quiet. I just stopped looking. Nora studied him. No defensiveness. No excuses. Just honesty. Why now? She asked. Because your daughter called the wrong number, he said. And I answered. Nora looked down at the folder in his hands. Then back at his face. What do you want from me? Nothing, he said. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. He set the folder on the table and turned to leave. Wait. He stopped. Nora crossed her arms, not defensively, just steadying herself. If you're telling me this, it's because you want to do something about it. Calloway turned back slowly. I do. Then don't do it alone. Her voice was firm. I've been fighting this for 2 years. I have emails. Maintenance requests. Photos. If you're serious, I'll help you. Calloway studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. 2 weeks later. They met in a small coffee shop near the waterfront. Early morning. Rain streaking the windows. The place smelled like espresso and old wood. Iris sat in a corner booth, drawing quietly, headphones on. Nora and Calloway sat at a table near the back, files spread between them. Nora had brought everything. Boxes of documentation. Emails. Maintenance requests. Photos of broken heating units, exposed wiring, black mold creeping up bathroom walls. 2 years of neglect, catalogued and dated. Calloway read through them methodically. His expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened around the edges of the papers. This is worse than I thought, he said quietly. I tried to get the city to listen, Nora said. They said it wasn't a priority. Because someone made sure it wasn't. He pulled out his phone, swiped through a few screens, then turned it toward her. A scanned document. A zoning approval from 4 years ago, fast-tracked through the permit office. Signed by a city council member who'd later taken a consulting position with Crescent Properties. They've been doing this for years, Calloway said. Buy old buildings. Ignore complaints. Wait for something to break. Then they claim it's unsalvageable and rezone for luxury development. Nora's voice was low, controlled. And families like mine get erased. Yes. She looked at him. Really looked at him. What do you want from me? Calloway leaned forward. I want your permission to submit this. Officially. To the State Housing Authority. With my name attached. She blinked. You'll lose clients. Reputation. People will ask why you waited. I know. Then why? He looked at her. Because I'm tired of looking away. Nora was silent for a long moment. Then she reached across the table, placed her hand on the stack of files. Do it. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She sat at the small table in the motel room, staring at the case files, her mind racing. Iris was asleep. The room was quiet except for the hum of the heater and the distant sound of traffic. A knock came. Soft. Hesitant. Nora opened the door. Calloway stood there, looking exhausted. I couldn't stop thinking about something you said, he began. She stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like he wasn't sure he should be there. You said families like yours get erased, Calloway continued. But this isn't just about the apartment, is it? Nora closed the door. She didn't answer right away. Finally, she sat down, gestured for him to do the same. When Iris was 3, We lived in a different building, managed by a different slumlord. Calloway listened. It was winter. The boiler broke. Temperatures dropped. The landlord promised to fix it. Never came. I called. I threatened legal action. 2 days later, we got an eviction notice. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. Illegal, but he had lawyers. I didn't. We were out in 48 hours. Stayed in a shelter for 3 weeks. Iris got pneumonia. I worked double shifts to save for a new deposit. She looked up at Calloway. I promised her I'd never let that happen again. And then the fire, Calloway said quietly. Nora nodded. I'm terrified that if we do this, if we go after them, they'll come after us. They'll find a way to make us disappear. Calloway leaned forward. Not this time. How can you promise that? Because this time, you're not alone. Nora studied him. Saw something in his eyes. Not pity. Understanding. You've lost something too, haven't you? Calloway nodded slowly. Yeah, I have. Tell me. He hesitated. This wasn't something he talked about. But something about this woman, this moment, felt safe. 15 years ago, I was a junior architect at Crescent, he began. Ambitious. Hungry. Willing to overlook things I shouldn't have. Nora waited. I worked on an affordable housing conversion project. Old residential hotel, supposed to become mixed-income housing. Except it wasn't. Midway through, the plans changed. Units meant for low-income families were quietly rezoned. Became luxury condos. His voice tightened. I questioned it. My boss told me, this is how the business works. Adapt or leave. And you left, Nora said. Not right away. Calloway's jaw clenched. There was one tenant who refused to leave. An elderly woman. Her name was Margaret. She'd lived there 40 years. I was sent to negotiate. He paused. I sat in her tiny apartment. Drank tea. She showed me photos. Her late husband. Her children. Her life. And she asked me, are you going to let them do this? Nora didn't speak. I wanted to say no. I wanted to fight. But I didn't. I left. Convinced myself it was out of my hands. His voice cracked slightly. Margaret was evicted 2 weeks later. Moved in with her daughter across the state. Died 6 months later. Her daughter sent me a letter. She never stopped asking why no one helped. The silence stretched. I could have, Calloway whispered. I could have gone to the press, to housing advocates, to someone. But I was afraid of losing my career. So I stayed silent. And she died believing no one cared. Nora reached across the table. Placed her hand over his. You can't change what happened to her. Calloway looked up. But you can change what happens now. He stared at her hand covering his. Then he turned his palm up, laced his fingers through hers. I have to. The next morning, Calloway stayed. He'd crashed on the couch. Nothing happened. He just couldn't leave. When Iris woke and found him there, she was delighted. You stayed. Calloway sat up, rubbing his eyes. Yeah, I did. Iris grinned. I'll make coffee. Nora emerged from the tiny bedroom, surprised but not upset. You don't have to. I know how to make coffee, Iris said proudly. It was terrible coffee. Watery and lukewarm. But Calloway drank it anyway, and Iris beamed. They sat together at the small table, a strange little trio. Iris chattered about her school project. Calloway listened, genuinely interested. Nora watched him, seeing him differently now. Not as the distant billionaire, but as a man trying to make up for past silence. After Iris left for school, Nora and Calloway remained at the table. So, Nora said, what's the plan? Calloway pulled out a notebook. We need more evidence. Financial records. Communication logs. Anything that shows a pattern. I know someone, Nora said. A former tenant. Maria. She lived in a Crescent building for 12 years. Kept everything. Calloway nodded. Let's talk to her. And then? Then we take it to the State Housing Authority. And the press. Nora's eyes searched his face. If we do this, there's no going back. I know. They'll come after both of us. Calloway met her gaze. Let them try. Something passed between them. Not just partnership. Something deeper. Neither named it. Not yet. Maria Delgado lived in a small house on the south side, surrounded by a chain-link fence and a garden she tended with fierce devotion. She was in her late 60s, sharp-eyed, and deeply suspicious when Nora and Calloway showed up at her door. I remember you, Maria said, looking at Nora. You lived at Riverside. I did. Maria's gaze shifted to Calloway. And you? I'm trying to help. Maria snorted. Rich man wants to help. Where have you been the last decade? Calloway didn't flinch. Looking the other way. I was wrong. Maria studied him. Then she opened the door. Come in. Inside, the house was neat but worn. Photos lined the walls. Family. Grandchildren. A life built carefully over decades. Maria led them to the dining room, where boxes were stacked in the corner. I knew someday someone would listen, she said, opening the first box. So I kept everything. Letters. Violation notices. Repair requests ignored for months, sometimes years. Photos of crumbling ceilings, broken windows, rats in the walls. Calloway and Nora went through them carefully. The pattern was undeniable. They did this on purpose, Nora said quietly. Of course they did, Maria replied. Break it down slow. Wait for people to leave. Then sell it off. Calloway looked up. Did anyone from the city ever respond? Maria laughed bitterly. Once. Inspector came. Took photos. Filed a report. Nothing happened. 2 weeks later, same inspector bought a new car. Calloway's jaw tightened. Can we take copies of these? Nora asked. Maria nodded. Take whatever you need. Just make them pay. That evening, Calloway's investigator, Jonas, pulled bank records. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. Money flowing out of maintenance budgets and into private accounts. The numbers were staggering. Jonas called Calloway just after midnight. You need to see this. Calloway drove to Jonas's office. Nora came with him. They sat in the dimly lit room, staring at spreadsheets that told a story of deliberate, systematic theft. They weren't just neglecting the buildings, Jonas said. They were actively siphoning funds meant for repairs. How much? Calloway asked. Over 5 years. Close to 12 million. Nora's breath caught. And here's the thing, Jonas continued. The money didn't just disappear. It went into accounts tied to a consulting firm. Guess who sits on the board? He pulled up another document. A corporate filing. 3 names listed. One of them was a city council member. Calloway stared at the screen. We've got them. Nora leaned back in her chair. Do we? Or do we just have more evidence they'll bury? Calloway looked at her. Not this time. This time, we make sure everyone sees it. But someone was already watching. The next night, Nora was alone in the motel room. Iris was at a friend's house for a sleepover. Nora had insisted. Wanted her away, just in case. She was going through documents when she heard it. The sound of the lock being jimmied. Her heart stopped. The door opened slowly. 2 men stepped inside. Faces obscured by hoods. They didn't rush. Didn't shout. Just stood there, filling the small space with menace. Nora grabbed her phone. One of them raised a hand. Don't. His voice was calm. Cold. You've been asking a lot of questions, he said. Digging into things that don't concern you. Nora's hand trembled, but her voice stayed steady. Get out. We're not here to hurt you, the man said. We're here to deliver a message. This ends now. Drop it. Or your daughter's school gets a visit. The words hit like a punch. You touch her. We won't have to. As long as you stop. They turned and walked out. Just like that. The door clicked shut. Nora stood frozen. Then her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, shaking. She grabbed her phone and called Calloway. He answered on the first ring. Nora. She couldn't speak. Just gasped for air. I'm on my way. He was there in 8 minutes. When he burst through the door, Nora was still on the floor, hugging her knees. He dropped to his knees beside her, pulled her into his arms. I'm here. I'm here. You're safe. They threatened Iris, she whispered. Calloway's entire body went rigid. What did they say? She told him. Every word. His jaw clenched. We're ending this. Tomorrow. Nora looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. What if we can't? What if they? They won't. His voice was steel. I'm not letting them hurt you. I'm not letting them scare you into silence. Calloway. No. He cupped her face, his eyes fierce. We go all the way. No compromise. No halfway. We finish this. Nora stared at him. Then she nodded. All the way. The next morning, they went to the State Housing Authority together. A thick folder of evidence. Financial records. Testimonies. Photos. Everything laid out in meticulous detail. Nora's hand was in Calloway's as they walked into the building. Inside, they met with an official named Catherine Brennan. Mid-40s. Sharp. No nonsense. She listened as Nora spoke. Calm. Clear. Factual. Every complaint. Every ignored request. Every family displaced. Then Calloway handed over the financial records. Catherine read through them slowly. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. This is extensive, she said quietly. It's also just the beginning, Calloway replied. We have 12 other families ready to testify. Catherine looked up. You understand what you're alleging here. This isn't just negligence. This is criminal misconduct. I know, Calloway said. And you're willing to go on record? Yes. Catherine glanced at Nora. You too. Nora nodded. Yes. Catherine closed the folder. I'll need 72 hours to review this and coordinate with our legal team. But if what you're saying is true, we'll open a formal investigation. Thank you, Nora said. Outside, reporters were waiting. Calloway had arranged it. Quietly, carefully. Nora hesitated at the top of the steps. Calloway squeezed her hand. You don't have to say anything. But if you want to, I'm right here. Nora looked at the cameras. Then at him. Then back at the cameras. She stepped forward. For 2 years, I tried to protect my daughter by staying quiet, she said, her voice steady. I thought silence would keep us safe. But silence only protects the people who hurt us. Today, that ends. The cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. But Nora didn't answer them. She just turned and walked back to Calloway. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. And together, they walked away. The story broke like a dam bursting. Not with a whisper. With a roar. By the next morning, every major news outlet in the region had picked it up. Billionaire CEO exposes former employer. Systemic housing fraud uncovered. Families displaced while executives profited. Calloway's phone didn't stop ringing. Clients. Board members. Investors. Reporters. Everyone wanted answers. But he gave them silence. He sat in his office, the city sprawling below him, and watched the news coverage on mute. Nora's face on the screen. Her voice steady as she spoke to reporters. The pain in her eyes barely concealed. His assistant, Lauren, knocked softly and entered. They're asking for a statement, she said carefully. Tell them no comment. Calloway, the board is panicking. 3 clients have already pulled contracts. They're saying you blindsided them. That you should have disclosed your connection to Crescent before. Before what? Calloway's voice was quiet but sharp. Before I exposed a criminal enterprise. Lauren hesitated. They're worried about optics. I don't care about optics. I know. But they do. Calloway turned to face her. Schedule an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow morning. I'll address them then. Lauren nodded and left. Calloway stared at the city below. He'd built an empire on reputation. On trust. On carefully curated relationships. And now he was watching it crack. But for the first time in 15 years, he didn't feel empty. He felt awake. The board meeting was brutal. 12 men and women in tailored suits, seated around a polished table, staring at Calloway like he'd committed treason. Charles Whitmore, the oldest board member, spoke first. Do you have any idea what you've done? Calloway met his gaze. Yes. We've lost 3 major contracts. Our stock dropped 6%. Investors are asking if we can be trusted. They should be asking if Crescent can be trusted. Charles leaned forward. This isn't about Crescent. This is about you. You used to work for them. You knew about these practices 15 years ago and did nothing. Now you're suddenly the hero. The accusation hung in the air. Calloway didn't flinch. You're right. I knew. I suspected. And I walked away because it was easier. That was my mistake. But I'm not walking away now. Another board member, Patricia, spoke up. You should have consulted us before going public. This affects all of us. I know. Then why didn't you? Because if I'd waited for approval, it never would have happened. And more families would have been hurt. Patricia's jaw tightened. So you prioritized your conscience over your fiduciary responsibility. Calloway stood. Yes, I did. Silence. If that's grounds for removal, then vote. But I'm not apologizing for doing what's right. Charles stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed. We're not voting you out, Calloway. But you need to understand the position you've put us in. We're a development company. Our reputation is everything. And right now, it's in question. Then let's rebuild it, Calloway said. Not by hiding. By being transparent. By proving that we're different. Charles didn't look convinced. But he nodded. We'll reconvene next week. In the meantime, no more press. No more statements. Understood. Calloway nodded. But he had no intention of staying silent. That evening, Nora sat in her new apartment. Small. 2 bedrooms. But clean. Safe. Hers. Iris was at the table, doing homework. Humming softly to herself. Nora watched her, heart aching with love and fear in equal measure. A knock came. Nora tensed. Then relaxed when she saw Calloway through the peephole. She opened the door. He looked exhausted. Worn down. But he managed a small smile. Bad day? She asked. You could say that. She stepped aside. He walked in, and Iris looked up. Hi, Calloway. Hey, Iris. How's the homework? Boring. He laughed. A real laugh. The kind Nora hadn't heard from him before. Want some tea? Nora asked. Yeah, that'd be good. They sat together in the small kitchen while Iris finished her homework. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was companionable. Grounding. Finally, Calloway spoke. I think I'm losing my company. Nora looked at him. Because of this. Because of me. Because I didn't think about the consequences. Do you regret it? Calloway was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No. Nora reached across the table, placed her hand over his. Then it's worth it. He looked down at their hands. I don't know if I believe that yet. You will. 2 days later, the counterattack began. Articles appeared in business journals. Opinion pieces questioning Calloway's motives. Was this really about justice, Or was it a publicity stunt? A calculated move to rebrand himself as a crusader while distracting from his own past? Anonymous sources claimed Calloway had been involved in shady dealings for years. That his company had cut corners on projects. That his sudden moral awakening was convenient timing. None of it was true. But it didn't matter. Doubt was a weapon, and it was being wielded expertly. Calloway ignored it. But Nora didn't. She saw the toll it was taking. The way his jaw tightened when he read the headlines. The way he stopped sleeping. The way the light in his eyes dimmed just a little more each day. And then the call came. It was late. Nora was getting Iris ready for bed when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Hello. A woman's voice. Calm. Professional. Is this Nora Callahan? Yes. My name is Rebecca Hart. I'm an investigative journalist with the Seattle Tribune. I'm working on a story about Crescent Properties and the housing fraud allegations. I'd like to speak with you. Nora hesitated. I've already given a statement. I know. But I want to tell the full story. Not just the fraud. The people behind it. The families affected. Your story. Why? Because the narrative is being hijacked. And I think the truth deserves better. Nora glanced at Iris, now in her pajamas, brushing her teeth in the bathroom. I'll think about it. Please do. I'll send you my contact information. When you're ready, call me. The line went dead. Nora stared at the phone. Then she called Calloway. A reporter wants to interview me. Which one? Rebecca Hart. Seattle Tribune. Calloway was quiet. Then, she's legitimate. I've read her work. She doesn't sensationalize. She digs. Should I do it? That's your call, Nora. But if you do, make sure you're ready. Because once your story is out there, it's out there. Nora took a breath. I'm ready. The interview took place 3 days later. Rebecca Hart was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with a notebook and a recorder. She met Nora at a quiet cafe, away from the media circus. Thank you for agreeing to this, Rebecca said. Nora nodded. I want people to understand what this is really about. Tell me. And Nora did. She told her about the years of complaints ignored. The nights Iris shivered in a cold apartment because the landlord wouldn't fix the heat. The fear of coming home to an eviction notice. The shelter. The pneumonia. The promise she made to her daughter that they'd never be helpless again. Rebecca listened. Took notes. Asked questions that weren't invasive, just clarifying. And Calloway Granger. Rebecca asked gently. How does he fit into this? Nora paused. He answered a call he didn't have to answer. And he showed up. That's more than most people do. Do you trust him? Nora looked down at her hands. I didn't at first. But yes. I do now. Why? Because he's not doing this for recognition. He's doing it because he couldn't live with himself if he didn't. Rebecca made a note. And what do you want people to take away from this story? Nora met her eyes. That silence is complicity. And that it's never too late to do the right thing. The article ran 5 days later. Front page. Above the fold. The headline read, The Woman Who Wouldn't Stay Silent. It was everything Nora had hoped for. Her story. Told with dignity. With truth. With context. But more than that, it humanized the fight. It wasn't just about corporate malfeasance. It was about real people. Real lives. Real consequences. The response was immediate. Messages poured in. From other tenants. Other families. People who'd been too afraid to speak up. Now they were ready. The State Housing Authority announced they were expanding the investigation. Federal authorities were now involved. And Crescent Properties issued a terse statement. No comment at this time. Calloway read the article 3 times. Then he called Nora. You were incredible. I just told the truth. That's what made it incredible. A pause. Calloway. Yeah. Thank you. For believing me. His voice softened. Always. But the victory was short-lived. 2 nights later, Calloway received a call from his lawyer. We have a problem. Calloway sat up. What kind of problem? Crescent is filing a defamation suit. Against you. And against Nora Callahan. Calloway's blood went cold. On what grounds? They're claiming your statements to the press were knowingly false and damaged their reputation. They're seeking $20 million in damages. That's absurd. We have documentation. I know. But it doesn't matter. This isn't about winning. It's about bleeding you dry in legal fees and scaring Nora into silence. Calloway's jaw clenched. They're not touching her. Then you need to be prepared for a long fight. Calloway hung up and immediately called Nora. They're suing us. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, how much? $20 million. Nora laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. I don't have $20, let alone $20 million. It doesn't matter. They're not going to win. Calloway, I can't afford a lawyer. You don't need one. Mine will represent both of us. I can't let you. Nora. His voice was firm. This isn't negotiable. We're in this together. She was quiet for a long time. Then, okay. The lawsuit became national news. Crescent Properties versus Calloway Granger and Nora Callahan. David versus Goliath. Except this time, Goliath had an army of lawyers. Depositions began. Endless hours of questioning. Trying to find inconsistencies. Weaknesses. Anything they could exploit. Nora sat across from Crescent's legal team, 3 men in expensive suits, and answered every question with calm precision. Did you ever personally witness financial misconduct? No. But I documented neglect that directly correlates with budget misappropriation. Isn't it possible the building issues were simply due to age? Not when the same issues were reported and ignored for years while funds meant for repairs disappeared. They pushed. She didn't break. Calloway's deposition was worse. They tore into his past. Every project he'd worked on. Every decision he'd made. Trying to paint him as a hypocrite. A opportunist. You profited from these same practices 15 years ago, didn't you, Mr. Granger? I worked for a company that engaged in unethical practices. When I realized it, I left. But you didn't report it. No. I didn't. That was wrong. I'm trying to correct that now. Or you're trying to rehabilitate your image. Calloway leaned forward. My image is the least of my concerns. Stopping this from happening to more families is all that matters. The lawyer smirked. How noble. Calloway didn't take the bait. The strain was showing. Nora was exhausted. Working. Caring for Iris. Preparing for court. Barely sleeping. Calloway was running on fumes. Managing his company. Fighting the lawsuit. Watching his reputation crumble in real time. One night, they both ended up at Nora's apartment. Late. Too tired to pretend they were okay. Iris was asleep. The apartment was quiet. Nora sat on the couch, head in her hands. Calloway sat beside her. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. They're going to destroy us. Only if we let them. She looked up at him, eyes red. What if it's not enough? What if we lose? Calloway turned to face her fully. Then we lose. But we lose knowing we fought. Knowing we didn't stay silent. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I'm so tired, Calloway. I know. I'm scared. Me too. She looked at him, surprised. You are. Terrified. He reached out, gently brushed a tear from her cheek. But I'm not giving up. And neither are you. Nora leaned into his touch. Then, without thinking, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't urgent. It was soft, tender, a lifeline in the storm. When they pulled apart, Calloway rested his forehead against hers. "I don't know what this is," he whispered. "Neither do I," she replied. "But I don't want it to stop." "Neither do I." They sat like that for a long time. Just breathing. Just being. Two people who'd been through hell and found each other on the other side. The trial began 6 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Media. Advocates. Curious onlookers. It felt like the whole city was watching. Nora sat at the plaintiff's table beside Calloway. Her hands were shaking, but her face was calm. Crescent's legal team was formidable. They presented their case with polish and precision. Painted Nora as a disgruntled tenant. Calloway as a bitter ex-employee with an axe to grind. But then it was their turn. Calloway's lawyer, Michael Torres, was methodical. He presented financial records, maintenance logs, testimonies from other tenants, photos of dangerous living conditions. And then he called Nora to the stand. She walked up slowly, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Michael's questions were simple, clear. "Ms. Callahan, how long did you live at Riverside Apartments?" 2 years. "And during that time, did you file complaints with the landlord?" "Yes. Multiple times." "What were those complaints regarding?" "Broken heating, leaking pipes, exposed wiring, black mold." "And were those issues addressed?" "No." "Did you ever receive an explanation?" "No. Just promises that were never kept." Michael nodded. "And on the night of the fire, what happened?" Nora's voice was steady. "I went downstairs to speak with the landlord. When I came back up, there was smoke. My daughter had called for help. A stranger came. If he hadn't, I don't know what would have happened." She looked at Calloway. He looked back. "That stranger was Mr. Granger." "Yes." "And why do you think he came?" "Because he cared. Because when someone asks for help, you answer." The courtroom was silent. Michael continued. "Ms. Callahan, Crescent's attorneys have suggested you're doing this for money. Is that true?" "No." "Then why?" Nora took a breath. "Because I don't want another mother to stand in a freezing apartment, watching her daughter shiver and feel helpless. I don't want another family to lose everything because someone decided profit was more important than people." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm doing this because it's right." Michael nodded. "Thank you. No further questions." The defense tried to shake her. But Nora didn't waver. Then Calloway took the stand. He answered every question with brutal honesty. Yes, he'd worked for Crescent. Yes, he'd suspected wrongdoing. Yes, he'd stayed silent. "And I regret that every day," he said. "But I can't change the past. I can only try to do better now." The defense attorney pressed. "Isn't this just about salvaging your reputation?" "No." "Then what is it about?" Calloway looked directly at the jury. "It's about a little girl who called the wrong number and trusted a stranger to help. It's about a mother who fought for 2 years and was ignored. It's about all the people who were told their voices didn't matter. I'm here to say they do." The courtroom was silent. The defense attorney had no further questions. Closing arguments came 2 days later. Crescent's attorney painted a picture of opportunism. Two people looking for a payout. A vendetta disguised as justice. But Michael Torres told a different story. He spoke of families. Of broken promises. Of a system that failed the vulnerable while protecting the powerful. And then he said something that would be quoted in every news outlet for weeks. "This case isn't about money. It's about accountability. It's about whether we, as a society, believe that everyone deserves a safe place to live. Or whether we believe that some people's comfort is worth more than others' safety. You get to decide." The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. The forewoman stood. "In the case of Crescent Properties versus Calloway Granger and Nora Callahan, we find in favor of the defendants." The courtroom erupted. Nora's hands flew to her mouth. Calloway closed his eyes, exhaling for what felt like the first time in months. But the forewoman wasn't finished. Furthermore, we recommend the court forward all evidence to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Applause broke out. The judge banged the gavel. But Nora didn't hear it. She turned to Calloway, tears streaming down her face, and threw her arms around him. He held her tight. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Calloway stepped to the microphones first. "Today, justice won. But this isn't my victory. It belongs to Nora Callahan. To Maria Delgado. To every family who was told their pain didn't matter. This is for them." Then Nora stepped forward. "I just want to say thank you. To everyone who believed us. Who stood with us. And to Calloway Granger, who proved that doing the right thing is always worth it." She looked at him. He looked back. And the cameras caught it. The moment. The connection. The love that had grown in the middle of a battle. 3 months later, the charges were filed. Federal. State. The CEO of Crescent Properties was arrested. Others followed. Buildings were placed under city oversight. Repairs began. Families were given relocation assistance. Real assistance. Calloway's company took a hit. But slowly, it rebuilt. Different now. Focused on affordable housing. On restoration that actually served communities. And Nora went back to school. Got her degree in social work. Started advocating full-time. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, they stood together on the rooftop of Riverside Apartments. Fully restored now. A community cooperative. Safe. Warm. Home. Iris ran ahead, laughing, chasing fireflies in the rooftop garden that hadn't existed before. Calloway and Nora stood at the edge, watching the city lights shimmer on the water. "Do you ever think about that night?" Nora asked. "What would have happened if I dialed the right number?" Calloway pulled her close. "Every day. And I think the universe knew exactly what it was doing." Nora laughed softly. "You believe in fate now?" "I believe in answered calls." She looked up at him. "That's basically the same thing." "Maybe." He kissed her. Slow. Soft. The kind of kiss that says I'm here and I'm staying. When they pulled apart, Iris called out, "Mom! Calloway! Come look!" They walked over, hand in hand. Iris pointed at the sky. Stars. So many stars. Visible even through the city lights. "Make a wish," Iris said. Nora closed her eyes. But she didn't need to wish. She already had everything. Calloway looked at the two of them. The little girl who'd called him by accident. The woman who'd changed his life. His family. Not by blood. By choice. And that, he realized, was the whole point. 6 months after that, Riverside Apartments held a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The final phase of renovation complete. The rooftop garden was now a community space. Vegetable beds. Benches. A playground for the children. Iris stood at the front, holding oversized scissors. Calloway on one side. Nora on the other. The crowd gathered. Neighbors. Former tenants. Maria. Rebecca Hart, covering the story one last time. The ribbon stretched between 2 posts. Red and gleaming in the sunlight. Iris looked up at her mother. "Ready?" Nora nodded. Together, they cut the ribbon. The crowd erupted in applause. Music played. Food was served. Children ran through the garden, their laughter ringing out over the city. Nora found a quiet corner, watching it all. Calloway joined her. "You did this," he said. "We did this." He smiled. "Okay. We did this." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Nora spoke. "I got a call yesterday. From the state. They want me to consult on housing policy reform." Calloway's eyebrows lifted. "That's incredible. Are you going to do it?" "I think so. If you think I should." I think you should do whatever makes you happy. Nora smiled. You make me happy. Calloway's expression softened. You make me better. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Nora's breath caught. I'm not good at speeches, Calloway said. And this probably isn't the most romantic setting. But I don't want to wait for the perfect moment. Because every moment with you is perfect. He opened the box. A simple ring. Beautiful in its simplicity. Nora Callahan, will you marry me? Nora's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the ring. At him. At Iris, playing in the garden. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Kissed her. And the crowd, noticing, erupted in cheers. Iris ran over. What's happening? Nora knelt down. Calloway just asked me to marry him. Iris's eyes went wide. And you said yes. I said yes. Iris threw her arms around both of them. Does this mean he's staying forever? Calloway looked at Nora. Then at Iris. Yeah, kiddo. I'm staying forever. And he did. Not because a little girl called the wrong number. But because when she did, he answered. And in answering, he found what he'd been missing all along. A family. A purpose. A home. Sometimes the wrong call is exactly the right one. Sometimes a single act of courage can change everything. And sometimes, the people we're meant to find are the ones we never went looking for. The end. Thank you for staying with us through this entire journey. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage and compassion can change the world, please hit that like button and subscribe to Tales of Desire with Mr. Walker. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And tell us in the comments, have you ever had a moment where a wrong turn led you exactly where you needed to be? We read every single comment, and your stories inspire us. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay courageous, and remember that sometimes the most important calls are the ones we never expected to receive. See you in the next story.